Good morning, boys and girls of Trinity Church and any other boys and girls that are looking in this morning. I hope you've had a great Easter so far. This morning I have two stories for you that are really good news stories. Our first good news story happened a long time ago in a faraway land, and it's about mums and dads, boys and girls who are locked in and not allowed out. Maybe you feel like that at the moment. Our story is recorded in the book of 2 Kings in the Old Testament part of the Bible. It takes place in the city of Samaria, where there was King Ahab, who wasn't really a good king. There was King Ben-Hadad, who was a nasty king. There was Elisha, the prophet of God, and there were 4 lepers. They were people that had a skin disease. Nasty King Ben-Hadad had his army surround the city of Samaria, so no food could arrive, and the food shortage began to take place, and people started to eat some unusual foods. As I mentioned, in Samaria, they were starting to eat some unusual things, and I'd like to mention some unusual things that I have eaten. I've eaten pig's feet, I've eaten baby goat, I've eaten cow's tail, and I've eaten cow's tongue, and they were all delicious. In Samaria, the unusual foods the people had to start eating were donkey's heads and pigeon poo. Can you imagine your mum serving up donkey's head for lunch? Or you having to spread pigeon poo on your toast, or dip your carrot sticks into pigeon poo instead of lovely hummus. But it wasn't all bad news in Samaria, because God had spoken through his prophet Elisha and had promised to help the people in their time of difficulty. And God had said through Elisha, by tomorrow evening we'll have lots of proper food, not just donkey's heads and pigeon poo. It wasn't 4 leopards at the city gate that was going to bring good news to the people about food. It was the 4 lepers. And let's call one of them Seamus, and he says, let's go out to Ben-Hadad's army and see if they will feed us, because the people are not going to let us into the city and we might starve if we stay here. When the 4 lepers arrived at King Ben-Hadad's army camp, they found that they had all disappeared, all the soldiers were gone, and the donkey was there, home alone. There were no soldiers in the camp because God had caused the army to believe another army was approaching, and they ran away in fear. The 4 lepers went from tent to tent, finding lots of food and lots of precious things. But another of the lepers, let's call him Jimmy, remembered all the people starving back in the city, and he said, today is a day of good news, but we are keeping quiet. All the people in the city were delighted when they heard the good news that there was lots of food in King Ben-Hadad's camp. The lepers did the right thing by sharing the good news they had with all the people in the city. One little boy, let's call him Eli, imagined all the lovely foods he was now going to be able to eat. God had kept his promise through Elisha by helping the people get food. And now for our second good news story, and this story happened the very first Easter. At that first Easter, Jesus died on the cross for you and for me. His body was then placed in a tomb, and it was guarded by some Roman soldiers. 3 days later, one of Jesus' friends, a lady called Mary Magdalene, went to Jesus' tomb and couldn't find him there, and she was very upset. But then Jesus appeared to Mary and said to her, "Good news, Mary, I'm alive again." Then Mary went to some of Jesus' other disciples who had locked themselves away because they were frightened, and she said to them, "Good news, Jesus is alive." Boys and girls, just like the lepers in Samaria and Mary Magdalene, you have good news and other things to share with your family and friends. What you have to share are kind words, helpful actions, and good news that Jesus is alive and helps us in difficult times. Boys and girls, ask your mum and dad today what kind words and helpful actions they would like you to say and do. For mums and dads, ask your children today what kind words and helpful actions they would like you to say and do. For mums and dads, boys and girls, you all have good news about Jesus. Think of someone you know who you will tell them that Jesus is alive and can help them in times of difficulty, and tell them today. Goodbye, boys and girls, and do tune in again next week for Trinity Virtual Church, where there will be another talk especially for you. Oh, and one more very important thing to say. Happy 11th birthday, James Riley. Have a great day, James.